this is Anika Lacerte of the Handcrafted Story. I make things to inspire your creativity and storytelling. I've been drawing daily with the iPad Pro since April 2017. You can find my drawings and time-lapse videos on Instagram at the Handcrafted Story. When I first started drawing with the Procreate app, it took me a while to figure out how to use it. This is the basic tutorial I wish I could have watched when I started. So if you're new to the Procreate app, this video is for you. To start with, I'm going to go over a few hand gestures. So these gestures are not very obvious in the app, and they took me a while to figure out, but they do speed up the process and make it faster. The first one is to undo. So I drew this heart already, and to undo it using my hand, I use 2 fingers, and I make sure that they're separated enough that it's obvious that it's 2, and I tap. So I actually drew this heart in 2 lines, and so it undid the first line, or the last line that I did. If I tap again, it will undo both lines. If I want to redo, I use 3 fingers, also tapping, not dragging, and I can tap and keep going back and forth with undo using 2-finger tap, redo, 3-finger tap. You can also use the arrows at the bottom here. So the arrow pointing left is undo, the arrow pointing right is redo. You can zoom and rotate the screen at the same time by pinching the screen. So you can move your fingers in and out, rotate it, as well as zoom in and out. Now let's say you get in really close and you decide you just want to be back to the normal screen. So you're going to pinch up and out, and there you're back. If you want to cut, copy, or paste, there is a hand gesture for that. Instead of tapping with 3 fingers, you're going to slide down. And then you're going to get options for cut, copy, copy all, paste. You'll also get options for cut and paste and copy and paste. If you cut and paste, it will remove your drawing and put it on a new layer. If you copy and paste, it will keep the drawing on this layer and add it to a new layer. So there will be 2 when you're copying and only 1 when you cut. Okay? Now if you want to exit out of this menu, you just tap anywhere on the screen. The other way to access those options is in the icon that looks like a wrench. It's called the Actions menu, and under Image you can cut, copy, and paste right there. The other thing I wanted to show you was how to draw a straight line. So I'm just going to hide the heart for a moment. To draw a straight line, you can draw a fairly, let's try this again. You can draw a fairly squiggly line. You hold it down and it will straighten out. Now I'm still got the pencil on the screen, and I can drag to where I would like it. As soon as I let go, that's where it will land. If I use 2 fingers at the same time, it will lock to these angles. So if you want a perfectly horizontal or perfectly vertical line, you hold 2 fingers down while keeping the pencil on the screen. When you first open Procreate, the first place that it opens to is the gallery. It will say Procreate in the top left, and it will show all the previous artworks that you have made and the different stacks that you have gathered. So this is probably not the amount of work that you will see when you first open it. I think the Procreate app comes with a few different sample artworks, so you have something to start with. So Procreate calls them stacks, but it's really folders of different artwork. Here's a blank one. Here's one where I inserted a photo, and then here's some drawings that I made. To open a new canvas, you tap on the plus sign in the top right. Then you choose the dimensions of the canvas that you want. I usually choose the square option, which is 2048 by 2048 pixels, probably because it posts really well on Instagram, but you can pick whichever option you want, or you can create a custom size. So if we pick the square one, it will open up, And so it's opening this new document. And if I want to go back to all those folders, I tap on the top left where it says gallery, and that will bring me back to all the previous artwork I've made. So here's a new artwork. It's called Untitled Artwork. If you want to change the name, tap where it says Untitled, change the name, and hit done. And there it's changed name. If you want to duplicate the artwork, let's say, so one reason why I duplicate artwork is that I like to use a photo background. So let's say you had a photo that you wanted to duplicate so you can draw over it again. You, on the photo, or on the artwork, you drag left and you choose duplicate. This also gives you the option to delete. So that's how you duplicate or delete. If you want to move artwork together to make a stack, then you drag it. Now the key in the last update with Procreate, they did change how this works. You need to keep the pencil on the screen. As soon as you let go, that artwork is going to stay right there. So you have to hold it down until you've got it in the place that you want it to be. So for example, these two, they're not in stacks. They are artwork on their own. If I wanted to join them together, I tap on the screen and drag it over. It will change to blue, and then I can let go. So that becomes a stack of two artworks. Now, let's say I wanted to add this photo artwork into that as well. I tap and drag, it will flash blue, and now I've still got the pencil on the screen, and I can decide where I want to put it, and wherever I let go, that's where it will end up. Let's say I did that and I actually wanted it out of the stack. I don't want it in this group anymore. Same thing, I hold down, but I drag to where the stack name is, and I'm coming out, and I need to decide where I want to put it. I could add it to another folder, or I could leave it like there. I'm just going to go over the different options, the different menu options that are at the top of the screen. So we already covered the gallery. The gallery will take you back to your previous artwork and all the stacks that they're compiled into. The next icon looks like a wrench, and it's the actions menu. If I tap it, there's different options. Now, this is a basic video, so I'm not going to go over every option. Mostly I'm going to cover the options that I use the most. So one of the things that I like to do is insert a photo. So to insert a photo, you tap on the wrench icon, which is the actions menu, image, and then insert a photo. It will bring you to your camera roll, and you can choose a photo. So this is a photo that I took of a blank page in a sketchbook. I'm not drawing in a sketchbook anymore, I'm drawing on a screen, but I miss drawing in a sketchbook. And so when I add the photo, then I can, if I tap the arrow key, the select will, it won't be selected anymore. Now I can draw on a photo of a sketchbook, so it looks like I'm drawing in a sketchbook. So that was in the actions menu, image, insert a photo. As I mentioned earlier, this is also where you can cut, copy, and paste. The next item here is canvas. I don't think I've ever used that part. The next one is share. This is how I save the images. So I usually save it as a JPEG. There are other options there. This is also where you can watch the time-lapse replay of the video. So if you want, you can have it set up. You need to have this selected to record the time-lapse of your drawing. And here you can watch the video. So time-lapse replay will let you watch the video. If you want to save the video, you need to choose export time-lapse video. And then you can, I'll just do it here, save video, and it will save to your iPad. The preferences, I don't think I've made any changes with that. If you are left-handed or right-handed, you may want it to look at that one. You can move, you can move this palette over to the right side if that's what you would prefer. So there's options here to look at. and help. Again, I don't think that's an option that I've used. So that is the actions menu. It looks like a wrench icon at the top. After that one is the adjustments menu. It looks like a magic wand. These are also options that I've not used very often. I think if I used photos more in my artwork, that might be something that I would consider, but definitely experiment with it. I think that would be my number one recommendation, is experiment. So that's the adjustments menu. Then is, actually it's not really a menu item, it's one button and it's the select tool. So let's say I drew something, really messy face. Okay, so let's say I drew something and I don't actually want it on this page. Oops, I drew it right on the drawing. Let's just delete that and try that again. Okay. So here is my happy face. And let's say, really messy. Okay. Let's say I want the happy face on this side of the page instead. So I choose the select tool. I draw around it. Then I choose the arrow tool next to it. And I can move it wherever I want. So that can go there. When I've chosen the arrow tool, you'll notice that there are options now at the bottom. So normally I prefer it to be at freeform. That means I can put it wherever I want. But if I was trying to line it up with other objects, I could choose magnetic. And then it adds some kind of like guidelines, so you can kind of get an idea of where this drawing is in relation to other drawings. You can also, the arrow pointing right will flip horizontal. The arrow pointing up will flip vertical. The arrow pointing kind of around the corner will rotate it. And this one, I'm not sure how to describe it. The next one will fill the screen. And then this one, the X, I believe, will go back to your original starting point. And here's another option to undo. So you can undo with the arrow that's pointing left here, and that will take you back, or you can redo. So left, the arrow pointing left undoes, and the arrow pointing right redos. Okay, so that is the select tool and the arrow tool. Now the arrow tool you can also use, let's say, so in this case, on that layer, it's only the happy face. And let's say I want to move that entire thing. I don't need to use the select tool. I can simply use the arrow tool, and that will select everything on that layer. So the select tool is good if, let's say, I only wanted to move this eye. So then it's only moving part of that drawing. And now I can move that. Oops, that's not what I wanted. I can move that around wherever I want. You'll notice what I was just doing is there are different blue circles, and you can use that to stretch and change the size of your drawing that way. Okay. Okay, so the next icon at the top is a brush. So this is probably the one I use the most. In order to choose a brush, you just tap on the brush icon, and then there are so many options that come with the Procreate app. This is one that obviously I created, so you won't find that one, but it will start with sketching options, inking options, calligraphy, painting. There's just so many options, so definitely experiment. See which ones you like. Whichever one is selected, like in this case, it's called the round brush. That one, if I tap anywhere outside the menu, I will be drawing with the round brush. So to choose a brush, you just tap on it. Now, if you want to change the size of the brush, so I'm just going to go back to the brush that I like to use. If you want to change the size of the brush, there is a scroll bar on the left here. So at the top is the biggest size, oops, and you can scroll down to the smallest size, 1%. You can also change the opacity of the brush. So there's the top one changes the size of the brush. You can go from small to fairly large. The bottom one changes the opacity of the brush. Now this particular brush won't change in opacity, so I'm going to pick one that will, just so I can show you. So that is full opacity, 100%. I'm just going to lower it to, I don't know what that is, 30%. So you can see if I draw, I have a range of the brush. If you want to modify a brush, which I think you probably would once you start experimenting, I would highly recommend don't just modify the ones that come with it. I'm just going to pick one where, so I like using the gel pen, and this is what I started with, but I copied it first. So make a duplicate first, that way you still have the original. To duplicate, you simply touch the pen down. Oops, that's not what I wanted. You drag left, and that will give you the option to duplicate. So these ones that have the wave, those ones have been duplicated. And then you can change the name of it so that you're not saving over what came with the Procreate app. So you can always go back to if you don't like the changes that you made. Okay, if you want to import a brush, you tap on the plus sign at the top, and then again tap on where it says import, and then wherever you've saved brushes to your iPad, that is where you will add it. So you can also create your own brushes. This is definitely an area where you definitely want to experiment. Spend a lot of extra time going through all the brushes and seeing which ones you like best. Okay, after the brushes icon is the smudge tool. This is not a tool that I use, but if you're interested in trying it, you can smudge using the same brushes that you draw with. So the brush, the smudge, and then the eraser tool all use the same brushes, which is interesting. So you can draw with a brush, smudge it or delete it, remove it, using the same texture. Both the smudge and the eraser tool, you can, because they are brushes, you can change the size. Here, it's the top scroll bar, and the opacity, it's the bottom scroll bar. Okay, the next menu item is the layers. So after the eraser are two little boxes, and that is the layer menu. To make a new layer, just tap on the plus sign in the top right corner, and there's your new layer. You can group layers. So this layer would be the first one, and let's say I want to group, I want to add layer 4, so I'm going to drag that one. It also will change blue, and I want that one. So I want those three in a new group. And then I tap in the top right corner, it's got 3 lines, and it becomes a new group. Now, I can change the name of that group. So if I tap where it says new group, I can choose to rename it. I can also kind of hide that group. So if I've got a bunch of layers, I don't have to see them all at once. There's a little V sign right here, and I can tap that so those layers aren't as obvious. Or I can tap it again and see them all. I can move layers. So let's say I wanted this layer over here. I just tap and drag. You can change the opacity of a layer. So I'm just gonna make that heart more visible. If I tap anywhere outside of the menu, then the menu disappears and I can see my drawing. But let's say that I want this heart layer, I want it to be less. I don't want to see it as much. So I use 2 fingers and tap on the layer, and then it says slide to adjust, and I can drag left or right to change the opacity of anything on that particular layer. You can also change the color or affect only what is on that layer by doing an alpha lock. So I'll try to explain it. So I can tap on the layer and then select alpha lock. The background of the layer will then change to a gray and white checkerboard. And now I will only be able to affect this heart. I will only be able to affect the things that are on that particular layer. So I'm going to try drawing. Because the alpha lock is on, I won't be able to draw anywhere other than on the heart. So you can see only where the heart is, that's the only thing that's affected. To remove the alpha lock, you can either tap on the layer and uncheck it, or another way to turn the alpha lock on and off is to use 2 fingers and drag right. So again, we'll turn it off. So you're using 2 fingers and you're dragging right. That will turn the alpha layer on, and then you can see the checkerboard. You drag it again and it will disappear. The last icon at the top of the screen is the color menu. So it's a little circle at the top right corner. I'm not sure what the default is, what it will open to, but there's 4 different options. So there's disc, classic, value, and palettes. In the palette option, you can create new palettes, so you can create new colors, groups of colors that you like. To create a new one, you tap on the plus sign and you'll get a new palette. You can tap where it says Untitled Palette to change the name. You can make different palettes, the default one. So whichever one is default, let's say I pick this one. Then when I go into the classic view, then that's the only palette I see here. One thing that I can do is I can add color. So let's say I can either pick a color here or I can pick a color from the screen. So one way to pick colors is to use this square. So it's in between the 2 scroll bars. It's a little square with rounded corners. I can drag it around and then pick whichever color I want. And then if I tap anywhere on these gray squares, I will add that color. If I don't like one of these colors, let's say I don't like this yellow, I tap and hold until I have the option to delete. So this one, let's say I don't want it, I tap and hold, and then I can delete it. One of the cool things about the color menu is that you can use it to fill shapes. So I've drawn a kind of a messy circle here, and because there are no holes, no gaps in the circle, I can tap and drag that color. Oops, not like that, try it again. I can tap that color and drag it and let go in the circle and it will fill the circle. Now if I instead had a circle that had a gap in it, it will fill the whole screen. Oh, I'll just show you. There it goes. So if you're wondering why it's doing that, there's probably a little gap in your drawing, and so it won't fill only that. So you need to cover up that gap, and then it will only fill that shape. The action steps that I recommend is to practice, 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 experiment. This is a really fun app to play with. The point of this practice is not to make beautiful drawings, but it's to learn how to use the app. So after you've downloaded the Procreate app, I recommend making a goal to draw with it every day for a month. Set a timer for 5 or 10 minutes. It doesn't have to be a long time. Pick a time of day when you aren't too tired, and maybe make a list of the things you want to draw. Different ideas, like a list of flowers or different words or quotes you could try drawing. You could even use a drawing book to copy from to give you experience using the app. Again, the point is not to draw something incredibly beautiful. The point is to get to know the app, and the beautiful drawings will come. Like with many tools, there is a learning curve to using the Procreate app, but it is so worth it. Have patience with yourself and persevere.